Long queues form along the Thames to Westminster as people prepare to pay their last respects to the late Queen. This is the scene now at Buckingham Palace, where the Queen's coffin remains before today's procession to Westminster. It arrived at the palace yesterday evening and was met by her children and grandchildren. As the crowds gather, tens of thousands of people are expected in central London, with people prepared to queue for many hours.
I think it'll be very, very emotional to see her to go for the last time, and I wanted to be here.
So I think seeing the Queen leave Buckingham Palace for the last time would be very emotional for everybody in the country.
I come all the way from Canada, and why I come here just to say goodbye to her, because it's an honor for me to be here in person.
King Charles III arrived at Buckingham Palace this morning. He and his two sons, Prince William and Prince Harry, will walk with the coffin during this afternoon's procession. And here at Westminster, the Queen's coffin will be brought to the Ancient Hall, where it will lie in state for 4 full days until the funeral on Monday. We'll be answering some of your questions about the arrangements for people wanting to take part in this farewell to the Queen. Also on the programme, the inflation rate falls slightly due to lower petrol prices, but food prices have risen. Ukraine's President Zelensky has visited Izium, one of the cities liberated in Ukraine's ongoing counter-offensive against Russia. And we'll be looking at how people have linked their affection for Paddington Bear to their feelings of loss after the death of the Queen.
And stay with us here on BBC News, where we will bring you continuing coverage of events plus analysis from our team of correspondents in the UK and around the world.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchtime News. There are large queues forming along the banks of the River Thames as people wait for the Queen's lying in state at Westminster Hall to begin this afternoon. The Queen's coffin will be taken on a gun carriage in a procession from Buckingham Palace to Westminster later, with King Charles III along with Princes William and Harry walking behind. During the procession, guns will be fired at Hyde Park and Big Ben will toll. Heathrow Airport has said that flights will be delayed so that they don't disturb the procession and to ensure silence over the Mall. The Queen's coffin has been resting at Buckingham Palace since yesterday evening, as our correspondent Sarah Campbell now reports.
Well, Rita, the family for the last few hours have had time to say their own private goodbyes in the palace that was, of course, the Queen's home and her place of work throughout much of her life. And in the next couple of hours, she will leave here for the final time. In scale, the procession is due to be relatively small, relatively private, led by the King, with other members of the royal family following behind.
A final journey to the palace. Last night, thousands of people braved the rain to watch the Queen arrive one last time. Emotionally charged, there were cheers and tears.
Everyone's really come together. You feel like you've sort of just had a sort of out-of-body experience all together. It's a real surreal moment, and yeah, one that won't be forgotten, that's for sure.
Isn't it moving? I just hold my feelings in words and bless her. May she find a rest in peace. God rest her soul.
Inside, her family were waiting to pay their respects. The Queen's coffin was taken to the bow room overlooking the gardens. Family members, along with the staff who served the Queen through the decades, were able to spend a few hours with her, coming to terms with a personal loss.
Private grieving will soon become public once again for the Queen's family. The King and his two sons, Princes William and Harry, will walk behind the coffin as it journeys from Buckingham Palace to Westminster Hall. There will be no music. There will be the sound of minute guns being fired in Hyde Park, and Big Ben will toll.
What do you think that moment's going to be like? What will you be thinking when you see her leave Buckingham Palace for the very last time?
I think it's very, very sad. I think she's had the most wonderful of lives. She's been a fantastic monarch. She's the only monarch that I've ever known. I think it'll be very, very emotional to see her to go for the last time, and I wanted to be here.
It's going to be very emotional, to be honest. When I saw her leaving Edinburgh last night, it was quite sad when they showed the airplane takeoff. So I think seeing the Queen leave Buckingham Palace for the last time would be very emotional for everybody in the country.
I come all the way from Canada, and why I come here just to say goodbye to her, because it's an honor for me to be here in person.
The procession will leave Buckingham Palace at 2:22. The Queen's coffin carried on a gun carriage of the King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery. Crowds will watch as the cortege journeys through central London, along the Mall, to Horse Guards, then down Whitehall to Parliament Square and into New Palace Yard, ready for the lying-in state in Westminster Hall. Members of the public will be able to see the Queen's coffin guarded by soldiers from 5 p.m. until 6:30 on the morning of her funeral.
There's a significant amount of pressure to get it right, obviously, to do what the nation would expect, what the world, the Commonwealth would expect this country would do in tribute to the Queen. But that's not something that rests just with me. There are thousands of servicemen and women, not only in London but around London, who are working extremely hard to deliver it. And they, I'm sure, will deliver an outstanding performance this afternoon.
Since early morning, people have been gathering along the route, ready to pay their respects as the procession passes by. The King travelled back to the palace as the final preparations for his mother's journey to Westminster Hall took place. It has been the setting for so many national moments of celebration, with the Queen at the centre of events. Just 3 months ago, despite her failing health, she made a final appearance on the balcony to acknowledge the wave of affection and thanks during her Platinum Jubilee. Those same emotions, coupled with deep sadness, will be in evidence today as the Queen leaves the palace for the very last time. Sarah Campbell, BBC News, Buckingham Palace.
Well, as Sarah was saying there, people are gathering in central London. Let's first talk to Charlotte Gallagher, who's on the Mall for us now. Charlotte.
Rita, just look at these crowds in the shadow of Buckingham Palace, the building which we associate the Queen with the most. It's where she lived for so many years with her parents, her children, and her grandchildren and great-grandchildren visited so often. And there's a real international feel to it down here today. We've got people from across the UK, but also people from right across the world. Now, Inga, you'll probably be able to guess what country Inga's from by the flag that you've got on. Why did you want to come down today?
We're visiting London, and for such a historical moment, I feel like it would be a shame not to be here today. We came to pay respect to the Queen. England was supporting Ukraine in this war, and
And your president paid tribute to the Queen,
yes,
didn't he, when she died? And it seems that she was a very influential figure in Ukraine.
She was, so as Boris Johnson became very popular in Ukraine. He came to visit a few times, and we're just really thankful for England.
Thank you. We've got lots of people from America as well, Rita. This couple from Pittsburgh.
Yes.
Thank you for talking to BBC News. Why did you want to be here today?
We were traveling in Scotland when the Queen passed, and we had just visited St. Giles, and it just seemed like such a connection that we were so close that we felt motivated to come here to London to see her off. And the emotion here is incredible. We went through Green Park, and the flowers and the cards and the tributes are so moving for a woman that she's the only monarch that we've known all of our lives. And I'm old enough to remember John F. Kennedy when he was assassinated in the procession in the United States. And we don't have a monarch, but this is the closest thing. I mean, this eclipses, of course, what we had, but it has that same feeling of emotional outpouring and sadness and celebration of her life. So we're really happy to be here for this.
Why do you think the Queen is so popular in America? Because I've met quite a few Americans down here today with Stars and Stripes flag, and they wanted to come and represent your country.
we don't have a monarch, right? So this is like the fantasies that we see on in the movies. You know, there's a 21 or 24-year-old young lady or young man that is royalty, and we sort of see that. And that was the real life of the Queen, right? I mean, she was a very, very young woman, and we're attracted to the royalty, to that success, to the honor that she's given. It's just something we don't have in our society, so we kind of look to the UK, our friends
Special
across.
relationship,
yes,
yeah.
Very much, and I've always had a fondness for royalty since I was young.
And what really makes me used to laugh was when presidents used to come and visit the Queen, and most powerful man in the world, and they'd stand up straight and look on their best behaviour.
I think that she had that effect on pretty much everyone that she met, and she was a remarkable woman and a remarkable role model in so many ways, and this is very much a historical event, and it's unfortunate and sad, but yet it's something not to be missed. It's an opportunity of a lifetime in a very sad sort of way.
Poignant, yeah.
Thank you.
But it sounds like everyone loves King Charles, and I think that he'll do an excellent job.
Thank you so much. Lots of international visitors here, Rita, but plenty of people from the UK, lots of families. You might be able to see the little girl toddling next to me here now. Lots of families coming out. They want their children to see this historic day, get photos of the day, and really pay their respects to a woman who did her job so well for 70 years.
Charlotte, thank you very much. Charlotte Gallagher there. Let's now join Ellie Price, who's in Westminster at the foot of Whitehall, I think, Ellie.
Just the tail end of Whitehall, just before Parliament Square. This will be the tail end of the procession. So the Queen and the entourage will be arriving shortly before 3 o'clock. As you can see, crowds very thick here already. The Queen will be passing through Downing Street. Of course, Liz Truss was the 15th Prime Minister that the Queen had formally appointed, and she'll be going past the Cenotaph. There was only 3 remembrance days that the Queen missed during her 70-year reign. Well, I'm joined now by Caroline and Dylan, and Dylan is 8. Dylan, what are you looking forward to today?
I'm looking forward to seeing the Queen come passing, all the horses, and seeing Prince Charles by a distance.
And why was it important to you? Because you should really be at school today, shouldn't you?
Yes.
And why was it important to you today?
Because I wanted to show my respect to the Queen and greet the King.
Dylan will always remember this, won't he?
He will never forget it. Nobody will ever forget this day that Dylan came to say goodbye to the Queen. Yeah, he'll love it.
There is something of a family atmosphere actually here today, because I've got Rachel here with her 3-month-old Bobby. Now Bobby's not going to remember it, but you still felt important that you brought her today.
Absolutely. So it was our way for Her Majesty of being able to say thank you, for her duty, care and devotion to our nation, obviously the realms and the Commonwealth. And although Bobby won't remember it, at least when we talk about Her Majesty, she will know that she was here. Also, though, to lend our support to King Charles, so that he knows that us as a people, we support him, and we know that he will carry on his mother's work and with the same duty as she did.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, as I say, the procession will come here shortly before 3 o'clock. It will end up in Westminster Hall, where it will be received by a number of parliamentarians, MPs and peers, and there will be a short service once the coffin is laid inside that will be attended by members of the royal family, by the Archbishop of Canterbury. Like I say, it's a really family-friendly atmosphere here at the moment, very sort of warm, and I think somebody said to me that it was not hardly a party atmosphere, but certainly there's a warmth here, and I think that's certainly reflected also in the weather too. So fingers crossed the rain will hold off, and certainly there'll be more and more people coming as we approach 3 o'clock.
Yes, indeed, Ellie. Many thanks. Ellie Price reporting there. Well, as she was saying, after today's procession, the Queen's coffin will arrive at Westminster Hall at around 3 o'clock this afternoon, ahead of 4 full days of lying in state. Members of the public will be able to pay their respects from 5 p.m. Tim Muffet has been speaking with some of those who've already made the journey to London, and a warning his report does contain some flashing images.
Along the south bank of the River Thames, that archetypal British activity, queuing. but on what's expected to be an unprecedented scale.
We are British, we live in California, but as soon as I heard, I just thought I needed to be here. I've always felt I would be. To just be here overnight is nothing in comparison to what she's done for us. She's just been the thread running through our lives since childhood.
From 5 o'clock this afternoon, people will start filing past the coffin of Queen Elizabeth in Westminster Hall. Over the next few days, the queue is expected to stretch right along the south side of the River Thames, past the Tate Modern, past London Bridge, and all the way to Southwark Park. There will also be a shorter, more accessible route intended for people with disabilities and impairments that will run from Tate Britain to the Houses of Parliament.
This is history in the making. The Queen, I don't know anyone else that worked up until 96 years of age.
This is such an important time in history, and so well in London, may as well be here.
And this queue, it's extraordinary feeling, isn't it, here this morning?
Yeah, well, no one knows each other. We're all here on our own, and then there's this sense of everyone's here for the same reason, and it's like this community of people that want to be there and want to pay their respects.
The last member of the royal family to lie in state in Westminster was the Queen Mother in 2002, when some 200,000 people filed past her coffin. For Queen Elizabeth, it could be 3 times as many, possibly more. So a huge logistical operation to keep this queue safe and organised is now underway.
Do not worry, you're not going anywhere yet, we'll let you know.
Wristbands are being issued to allow people to leave the queue for refreshments and to return without losing their spot. The mood is friendly and at times upbeat, although it's likely to become more sombre as it starts to move and people begin to enter Westminster Hall. There's never been a queue quite like this. In scale and significance, it's likely to be bigger than any we've seen before. Tim Muffet, BBC News.
So if you're going to make the journey to view the Queen's coffin, what is the current advice? Not just for transport, but what to bring and what to expect along the route. Will there be toilets? Will you be guaranteed to see the Queen lying in state? Well, Angus Crawford has been going through some of your questions and he joins us now. Angus, just broadly, what should people expect on the route?
Well, they're going to need to be stout of heart, that's for sure. We've been told that the potential is that wait times may be up to 30 hours. In a sense, this is a tale of 2 queues. There is the main queue, which stretches out this way towards Westminster Bridge and on the main queue, but there's also a queue for those with disabilities, which starts at Tate Britain. And as you heard in Tim's report there, this queue is going to stretch right away along the South Bank, going past some of London's most iconic places, past the London Eye, past the Royal Festival Hall, Shakespeare's Globe, HMS Belfast, and if necessary, on beyond Tower Bridge to Southwark Park. That would be 4.5 miles. As you can see, it's a very good-natured, quiet, but really very good-natured, very friendly, very calm queue at the moment. Importantly, for those who are concerned about queuing, spending time, trying to keep their place, every single person who joins this queue will receive a wristband with a number on it, and that number will guarantee you your place in the queue should you need to step away for a comfort break.
And what are people advised to bring with them?
Well, I think as little as possible, as little as you can to sustain you. Essentially, once the queue goes over Lambeth Bridge, it will then go into Westminster Hall via airport security. So imagine what you would take as hand luggage onto a plane. Minimal, if that is possible. A small bag, 1 zip. Mobile phones must be either turned off or on silent, and no photography is allowed. They're also keen to stress that people should dress in sombre attire. There should be no political statements on T-shirts and other sorts of clothing. There will be toilets en route. There are plenty of refreshments available. Bring as little as you can. If you do have to bring larger bags or even a tent, for example, there's been plenty of people camping out. I even met an 85-year-old who camped out today. The important thing to remember about that is they won't be allowed in, but there is a bag drop in Lambeth Palace, so you will be able to keep your place in the queue as it moves and drop your bigger bags there. But remember, this queue, once it starts moving, will be continuous. It will continue to move, so you won't be able to sit down for long periods of time. So the authorities are keen to stress this will be a very long queue with long waits. Everyone who does get here in time will get to see the lying in state, although they're keen to say that it is likely there will be a cut-off time sometime on Sunday evening to make sure everyone can get through.
And Angus, with so many people descending on central London, what is the latest travel advice?
Well, it is to look ahead, plan ahead, check before you travel. Green Park, for example, is closed. No point trying to get on or off there. Most of London's stations will be much, much busier than normal. There will be, appropriately enough, more services, particularly on the Elizabeth line. But the simple message is, come dressed for the elements, come prepared, be stout of heart, and be prepared to wait.
Sounds like good advice. Thank you very much. Angus Crawford reporting there. Well, the BBC will be offering a dedicated stream of the Queen's lying in state for those who want to pay their respects but who can't come to London or who are physically unable to queue. The service will be available on the BBC homepage, the BBC News website and app, the iPlayer, BBC Parliament and the Red Button. And the stream will be available from 5 p.m. today. Let's take a look at the day's other news now. And official figures show that the UK's rate of inflation fell for the first time in nearly a year in August. The Office for National Statistics says the cost of living dipped down to 9.9%. That is down from 10.1% in July. This report from our economics correspondent, Andy Verity.
1982, when inflation was last this high for this long, and thousands of Union flags were being waved for a very different reason, the Falklands War. Then, as now, it was a surge in the price of fuel that drove prices up, forcing businesses to bear much higher costs or pass them on in higher prices. Emma Robson runs a retailer in Essex which sells locally sourced fine spirits at events like farmers' markets or for delivery. She's trying to shield her customers from higher prices, but she's being hammered by higher costs. Last year, sending 2 bottles cost £8, now it's 14. And like other firms, she's got no idea what government support will be available.
We need clarity, and that's something that the government really needs to look at, because we need to know, how are we going to pay our fuel costs? How are we going to pay our electricity and gas bills?
It was petrol that drove inflation up, and last month it was petrol that brought some relief. A litre of unleaded was on average 14.3 pence less than it was in July. But petrol and diesel are still up by 32% on last year. The slowdown in inflation to 9.9%, the small downtick on the right of this line chart, is tiny compared to the acceleration in price rises since 2020. Prices of clothing and footwear accelerated, up by 7.6%, and food prices were up by an average of 13.1%. Prices of milk, cheese and eggs, for example, rose by 22%. Inflation may yet rise again in October when energy bills go up, even with government help to cushion the blow.
The fallback in the price of oil, which has pushed petrol and diesel prices down into the autumn, plus the intervention by the government to freeze the amount of energy paid by households going into the end of the year, does look like inflation may now peak at around 11%, which will take place either in the fourth quarter of this year or possibly the beginning of next year.
There's a glimmer of hope in the prices producers pay for raw materials. In July they were up 22.6%. In August that slowed to 20.5%. And the prices for goods leaving the factory gate were up 17.1% in July, but 16.1% in August. Nevertheless, the Bank of England's still under pressure to raise interest rates in a meeting postponed until next week. In the city, traders are betting they'll go up by at least half a percentage point, the 7th rise in a row.
And Andy is with me now. So a slight drop in the rate of inflation. Does this mean that prices are now going to start coming down?
No, by no means. I'm afraid prices will go up as they have been, really, for the last 5 years and do most commonly go up. But it's just by a question of how much. And of course, we've had a dip below double digits now, but most economists don't think that's the end of it and don't think it's going to stay below 10% for very long. The main reason being that we still have that big rise in energy bills coming up in October. Although the government's limited how much they'll go up, they're still likely to go up by about 25%. So it's quite likely that we'll see inflation get up to 11% or thereabouts at the end of this year or the beginning of next year.
Bank of England is due to make an announcement about interest rates next week. What is this likely to mean for that decision?
Well, I mean, they've been trying to forestall not what's happening to inflation now, but what's going to happen over the next 2 to 3 years. So the city at the moment, as I said, there are betting about 0.5 percentage point it's going to be added to interest rates next week. And the reason being, although the government's cushioning the blow in the short term, which will bring down the headline inflation rate, in the medium term, it's likely to cost 100 or 150 billion pounds. That's money the government's putting into the economy, which increases demand, increases upward pressure on prices. So the Bank of England has to raise interest rates to try to stop that getting out of hand.
OK, Andy, many thanks. Andy Verity there. President Zelensky has said that Ukrainian forces have retaken more than 3,000 square miles of territory in the east of the country. Russia still holds around a fifth of Ukraine, but Mr. Zelensky has vowed to drive all of Moscow's forces out of the country. Ukrainian officials have said the gains so far have exceeded expectations. Well, we can go live now to Kiev and to our correspondent there, Hugo Bachega. And Hugo, what is the situation like in those villages that have been reclaimed by Ukraine?
Well, Rita, in some of those liberated villages, there's no electricity, no water, no heating, and the Ukrainian officials say they're still carrying out security operations. We've seen residents celebrating the return of Ukrainian soldiers, but we're starting to hear some dramatic accounts of what life was like under Russian occupation. Allegations of torture are starting to emerge, and Ukrainian authorities returning to those villages say they found evidence of alleged crimes committed by the Russians. In total, about 150,000 people have been freed from Russian rule in recent days in the Kharkiv region. And this morning, President Zelensky visited Izum, one of the cities liberated by the Ukrainians, and he said the Ukrainian flag would return to every city and village in this country.
So the Ukrainians are making great claims for this counteroffensive that they've operated. Do they think they can keep up the momentum?
They feel they've got the momentum, Rita, and they say that Ukrainian forces are going ahead. Here in Kyiv, the government is talking about reclaiming all territory that's been invaded by Russia, including territory occupied since 2014. Now, I think they're going to be using the recent gains as a message to Western allies. We can defeat Russia, but we need more help. We need more weapons. The White House saying that more weapons could be delivered in a new military aid to be announced in the next few days. And the reality is that a fifth of this country remains under occupation. So it's a huge challenge for the Ukrainians, but they hope that the recent gains could mark a turning point in the conflict.
OK, many thanks. Hugo Bachega reporting there from Kiev. The head of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, has stressed the EU's resolve to ensure that President Putin fails in his war in Ukraine. Giving her annual State of the Union address to the European Parliament, she said that sanctions were here to stay. But Ms von der Leyen admitted there will be difficult moments ahead for Europe. She's outlined a series of measures to tackle soaring energy costs, including capping electricity producers' profits. The European Union's second highest court has largely upheld a ruling that Google acted illegally to secure the dominance of its search engine on Android mobiles. The tech giant was fined by the European Commission in 2018 for requiring the phones to pre-install the Google search app in order to gain access to its app store. The European General Court upheld the decision but reduced the fine slightly. Google said it was disappointed by the ruling. Kenneth Starr, the lawyer whose investigation led to the impeachment of President Clinton for lying about his affair with Monica Lewinsky, has died. He was 76 and suffered complications from surgery. Starr was told of the affair with Monica Lewinsky in 1998 while investigating Mr. Clinton's property investments. His report into the scandal found that the president had committed perjury, obstructed justice, tampered with a witness and abused his power. Now, I want to take you back to our main story, which is preparations as people gather outside Buckingham Palace, on the Mall and along the banks of the Thames in order to take part in the events commemorating the Queen's life and in advance of her funeral on Monday. As we know, the Queen's coffin is at Buckingham Palace at the moment. It will be taken just after 2:20 this afternoon from the palace on a gun carriage and taken down from the palace towards Westminster. And the coffin will be accompanied in the procession by King Charles and by his two sons, the Princes William and Harry. There are tens of thousands of people in central London, possibly even hundreds of thousands of people, certainly expected during the course of the next 4 days, as people come to pay their respects and bid farewell to the late Queen. Well, as so many people in the UK mourn the late Queen, people in countries all over the world are recalling their memories of her. Among the more than 100 countries visited by the Queen was Malaysia, a Commonwealth member since the country's independence from British rule in 1957. Ties between the two countries remained close in the early years when Malaysia needed British military and economic support, but they've been eclipsed more recently by Malaysia's strong trade ties with other Asian states. Our South Asia correspondent Jonathan Head reports now on how Malaysians remember the Queen.
Soon after, two monarchs met.
Malaysia is this region's largest member of the Commonwealth, an organisation to which Queen Elizabeth was deeply committed. She came here 3 times, making an indelible impression on those she met. 3 of them caught up at this tea shop in Kuala Lumpur to rekindle their memories of her. Back in 1998, James Niagam was told to expect a visit from the monarch at his shelter for abandoned children.
To my surprise, she was just ordinary. She was friendly, pleasant. The way she sat down and the way she connected with the girls, and they were enjoying the class as if she was there every day of the week. And what a memory, long-lasting memory with me and my family of this lady, of this special lady.
It's now 24 years since Queen Elizabeth visited Malaysia. This is a young country, and not many will remember the last time she was here, let alone the post-colonial period of the 1950s and 60s, when Britain and its monarchy mattered a great deal more. So it is worth asking just how much her death means to younger Malaysians.
This is an old fruit and vegetable market, built under British rule, now converted into an arts and crafts fair for women entrepreneurs, most of them young.
The younger generation don't know much about her and, the history, because if you ask me, even the younger generation don't know much about history. All they know is about social media, the TikTok, the Facebook, the Instagram and stuff like that.
I think she's been a very strong, independent woman figure. So being a woman and having someone in such a high authority in England, and the fact that she's a woman, I think it inspires all of us women here in Malaysia.
This was a closed-door reception where she was just...
As head of the Commonwealth Youth Council, Kishva Ambagapati had a number of meetings with the late Queen.
It was really very inspiring to have those conversations with her, because she always shows her leadership. She always shows how you need to create solutions, how you create opportunities from difficulties.
Were you surprised at her? She's quite an old person when you met her, at her interest in young people.
Oh, yes, I was actually, I was just quite excited, because normally you see, oh, this is an old person, would she understand the struggles which we went through? And I think she really showed a lot of empathy, and she was really genuine about the topic.
From the poor, insurgency-plagued nation that emerged from colonial rule in the first years of Queen Elizabeth's reign, Malaysia has been transformed. It's much richer, more confident, its future linked to Asia rather than Britain. All the more difficult, then, for her successor to sustain those close ties that she worked so hard to preserve. Jonathan Head, BBC News, Kuala Lumpur.
The Queen was the patron of more than 500 charities, but few of them were part of her life for as long as the Girl Guides. She was just 11 years old when she became a guide, earning badges for swimming, first aid and horse riding. Our correspondent Navtej Johal went to meet some of the many girls who followed in Her Majesty's footsteps.
I
promise that I will do my best to be true to myself and develop my beliefs, to serve the Queen and my community, to help other people and to keep the guide law.
A promise which girls have been reciting for decades. And when it comes to doing one's best, they have few better examples than their patron.
She was in our club.
Established more than a century ago, the Queen was a member of what was then known as Girl Guides, a girl-only organisation where they can take part in activities ranging from camping to creative arts. In 1937, when she was just 11 years old, the then Princess Elizabeth became a guide, and her sister Margaret a brownie. They were part of the first Buckingham Palace Guide Company, and this group in York feel a kinship with one of their own.
She was a girl guide and so am I, so that we're linked by organisation.
I started as a rainbow when I was 5, and the fact that she's been able to grow up through those steps as well, and the fact that she still was a part of that guiding journey until she died, is kind of an inspiration to everyone, I think.
It makes me feel really proud, actually, knowing that our Queen, who was the ruler of our country, did these same things that I've done.
I promise that I will do my best to do my duty to God and the Queen. And there they are, sending some carriers.
Few know more about the relationship between Girl Guiding and the Queen than Angie Goddard. She's been involved with the organisation for most of her life.
This is a picture of the Queen's wedding cake, the fruit for which came from the Girl Guides of Australia. And although as the wording of the promise and the laws are slightly changed over the years to be relevant to the girls and young women, I think the Queen has always lived by the promise she made and the laws she made.
In 1953, the year after Elizabeth became Queen, she also became patron of Girl Guiding, and over the years met many members. One of them was Ali Simcock.
To save the Queen, help other people and keep the Brownie Guide law.
The National Garden Festival was officially opened by Her Majesty the Queen.
Ali met her in 1986, aged 9, as a brownie when she visited the National Garden Festival in Stoke-on-Trent.
She just had this presence about her that was just so lovely. She made you feel like you were as important as she was, and it was just lovely. And you know, I was only 9, but yet here I am all these years later. It still means a lot to me, enough to feel like I've lost someone.
Back in York, the promise the girls recite will change soon, referring to the King rather than the Queen. But much like their most famous member, their commitment remains unwavering. Navtesh Johal, BBC News.
Amongst all the tributes to the Queen across the country, one character has appeared again and again. In with the thousands of bouquets of flowers which have been laid down, there have been many sightings of one Paddington bear. Our entertainment correspondent Colin Patterson has been asking why, during this time of national mourning, so many have turned to the famous character in the blue duffel coat.
Here, there, Paddington Bear. Even a marmalade sandwich for a monarch. From Balmoral to Buckingham Palace, Michael Bond's much-loved children's character has become a widespread part of tributes to the Queen.
This is very special. It's my father's original notebook that he had when he started writing A Bear Called Paddington.
And the writer's daughter is in no doubt as to why people are using a bear to show they care.
One of the last times most of us saw the Queen close up was when she did that marvellous sketch during the Jubilee celebrations. And because that was the final image of the Queen for many people, that's what they remember. And so they associate her with Paddington.
I always keep one for emergencies.
So do I. I keep mine in here.
It's causing the royals some problems. We're hearing they're sort of saying, please don't bring any more cuddly toys or marmalade sandwiches.
Well, it is a bit worrying, really, thinking what's going to happen to them, to all of them. Perhaps if people started, instead of leaving the bears, which is a wonderful thing to do and a very kind thought, but perhaps leaving messages instead and maybe making a donation to one of the Queen's favourite charities.
And your father had his own long-standing links with the Queen.
He did, because my father worked for the BBC, and when the Queen's coronation took place, my father was actually working on the outside broadcast, so he was at Westminster Abbey for the Queen's coronation.
And at the railway station which gave Paddington his name, people believe he's the perfect bear for this moment in history.
I think that it's marvellous that the opportunity to engage children with this as well, and a lot of children had done pictures with the Queen and Paddington.
I think he represents the best in all of us, the simpler side of humanity.
Thank you for everything.
That's very kind.
Colin Patterson, BBC News, Paddington.
Well, let's remind you now of the route for this afternoon's procession. The Queen's coffin will leave Buckingham Palace at 2:22. It'll be carried on a gun carriage of the King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery. Crowds will watch as the cortege makes its journey through central London, along the Mall to Horse Guards, and then down Whitehall to Parliament Square, and then into New Palace Yard, ready for the lying in state in Westminster Hall. Well, we can go live now to our defence correspondent, Jonathan Beale, who's at Wellington Barracks, where final preparations for this afternoon's procession are being made. Jonathan, tell us more about what's going on.
Well, all the soldiers, sailors, aircrew who are involved in this procession are now putting on their ceremonial uniforms. The final preparations are underway. Earlier today, we saw members of the Queen's Company, the Grenadier Guards, who'd flown back from Iraq, where they're providing security, to do the task of carrying the Queen's coffin. That will be put onto a gun carriage of the King's Troop, the Royal Horse Artillery. And behind me, you can see the horses that will pull that carriage here. I'm joined now by Catherine Cooksley, Warrant Officer Class 2 of the King's Troop. Just give us a sense. I mean, you haven't had, in one sense, many days to prepare for this. So what's the work that's been involved going on behind the scenes?
Yeah, so, I mean, we moved down here rather quickly, but however, the King's Troop being a ceremonial unit, we've been preparing for this type of event for nearly 70 years. And it's something over my time in the last 18 years has been looking at and how we deliver the output in the best way that we can to make everybody proud. So it's something that we've been rehearsing for a while. And
you're not just preparing, but you're going to take part in the procession.
I am, yes.
Just give us what's it mean for you and those men and women who serve alongside you to be part of this?
It means the world to us because we're not only here on a professional level, we want to make, Her Majesty still proud to lay her to rest for the final time. But we also want to make all the soldiers of the unit's family proud as well, because it's a huge responsibility for them, and they are dealing with it incredibly well. And I couldn't be more proud of the horses and even the soldiers that are firing the salute in Hyde Park as we speak as well. I couldn't be more proud as their EI.
I mean, you've been involved in lots of ceremonial occasions. That's what we see the King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery doing, many times throughout the year. I mean, yeah. In terms of, occasions, how big is this?
I think the magnitude of this event is, it can be quite overwhelming if you're not careful. And for myself, I haven't been, in my job role, I've only been doing it for a couple of months, and being the first female doing it as well, it's a huge responsibility. But your training comes into play, and I just hope that we can do the nation proud and the world.
When you're going down the Mall, down Whitehall, you'll just be focused on that job?
I'll be focused on the job and the horses. It's my responsibility under the Master Saddler and the Regimental Sergeant Major to make sure all the horses are safe and all the riders are safe, and that we do the royal family proud.
Catherine, thank you very much. I know you've got to get ready, put your uniform on, so we'll leave you there. As we said already, that procession starts at 2:22 p.m. and the commanding officer of this procession has made clear that this is a sad day, but their focus is now on delivering perfection. Back to you.
Jonathan, thank you very much. And we can rejoin our royal correspondent, Sarah Campbell, who's outside Buckingham Palace for us now. Sarah.
Yes, Rita, it's very calm here. It's very quiet, hushed tones. It's very solemn. You heard about the preparations at the barracks there. Here this morning, the gardeners have been out making sure that the flowers are looking their very best. I've lost count of the number of times that the street sweepers have been passed. Everybody really working to make sure that everything is absolutely perfect. And for so many decades, the Queen led the nation in moments of celebration from that balcony at Buckingham Palace. She met so many thousands of people at garden parties. She hosted world leaders here. And at 2:22 this afternoon, she is going to leave Buckingham Palace for the very last time. She's going to be transported on a gun carriage with the imperial state crown on top. Following behind her on foot will be the King and his siblings, as well as Prince William and Prince Harry. Princess Anne's son, Peter Phillips, and her husband will also be walking behind, as will the Duke of Gloucester and the Earl of Snowdon, Princess Margaret's son. And then following behind them in a car will be Camilla, the Queen Consort, will be Catherine, the new Princess of Wales, Sophie, the Countess of Wessex, and Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex. This is planned to be, in scale, relatively small, relatively private. It's due to take 38 minutes. There won't be any music. There will be the sound across London of the minute guns firing in Hyde Park, and Big Ben will toll. And after 38 minutes, the Queen's journey will end at Westminster Hall, where her lying in state will begin. Rita.
Sarah, thank you very much. Our all correspondent, Sarah Campbell there. OK, let's take a look at the weather now. Here's Helen Willits. Helen.
Rita, thank you. Tale of two halves, the weather today. Sunshine as we're seeing in Bradford, but as we've seen this morning, there's been quite a bit of rain in southern parts of the UK. In fact, we've had 10 to 15 millimetres of rain through the night, and it's continued through the morning for the likes of Sussex across the capital as well, although it is now starting to clear away. And you can see on this satellite and rainfall chart here where the rain is at the moment and the sunshine that follows, with the scattering of showers now across Scotland brought in by the brisk wind. But the next hour or so should see that rain migrating across the Channel. Still raining for the Channel Isles this afternoon, but increasing amounts of sunshine in southern parts of England, along with Wales, Northern Ireland, southern Scotland. There'll be a good deal of dry and quite bright weather. But what it does feel in the north is fresher. The wind direction has changed today. We've got a northwesterly, and that will be with us through the rest of the week. That will be the big change. Overnight tonight we'll notice it as well. It carries in a little bit more cloud and still some showers into eastern England, but notably Scotland. Less mist and fog around with a bit more breeze, but cooler and fresher. You can see temperatures into single figures in the north. In the south, though, still double figures, but it will feel fresher. And that northwesterly wind, that all-important wind direction, will be with us for Thursday and Friday and into the weekend, with low pressure to the east of us continuing to bring showers into northern eastern Scotland. Rather a number of showers here, quite heavy as well for eastern England. 1 or 2 for Northern Ireland, 1 or 2 coming into parts of Wales, northwestern parts of England. But in the south tomorrow, it might be the first day since early June that we don't reach 20 degrees Celsius. But it'll still, if you're outside that brisk wind, feel pleasant enough. But the wind is going to be a feature, as I mentioned. It strengthens again on Friday. You can see the tightly packed isobars here. But so particularly for eastern Scotland and eastern England, high pressure's nudging in from the west. So the wind's falling lighter here. So I still think with this September sunshine being quite strong, it'll feel pleasant enough by day in the sunshine outside the breeze. And so the forecast for the capital, if you are here over the coming few days, is one of mostly fine and dry weather. Mostly, and we'll be keeping an eye on that. But by night, so fresher by day, but really quite chilly by night widely. This will be our first quite chilly snap of the autumn, if you like. Single figures in the countryside and even a little bit of grass frost. But otherwise, as we go into the weekend, it's high pressure and fine weather for most, Rita.
Thank you very much, Helen. I want to take you back to central London now to see some of the scenes as people gather in preparation for today's events. As we were saying earlier, Queen Elizabeth's coffin will be taken from Buckingham Palace to Westminster Hall. The coffin was brought there last night and has been at rest there, attended by her children and grandchildren. It'll leave Buckingham Palace just after 2:20 this afternoon. Where it'll be taken to Westminster Hall. Thousands of people, tens of thousands of people from around the world arriving in London to watch the procession, and there are people all the way down the Mall there who are waiting respectfully and quietly for that procession to start this afternoon. A service will then be held at Westminster Hall before the late monarch lies in state until the morning of her funeral on Monday. There are also long queues forming along Albert Embankment on the south of the Thames as people wait for the Queen's lying in state to begin. As we heard earlier, Princes William and Harry, along with King Charles III, will walk behind the coffin as it's carried on a gun carriage. So that is all from us now. Time for the news and weather where you are. Bye-bye.